Tom Cruise's car collection isn't just about horsepower or luxury. It's a quiet autobiography told through metal, rubber, and time. Each vehicle in his garage marks a specific moment in his life, whether it's the scrappy Dodge Colt that carried a young, unknown actor to auditions, or the rare Brabus SLK65 tied to a high-profile marriage. Some cars reflect the thrill of performance, others the weight of privacy, or the need for protection. But what unites them all is that none of these choices feel random. They weren't bought to impress. They were chosen to mean something. In tracing the cars, we trace the man behind them. To start with, we have Tom Cruise's 1976 Dodge Colt. This is one of those cars that's easy to overlook if you're thinking in terms of performance or luxury. It wasn't fast, flashy, or rare. In fact, it was pretty plain. But for Cruise, it wasn't about what the car looked like or how much it cost. This Colt was his first car, bought at 18, right when he left New Jersey and landed in New York City, chasing a career in acting with more ambition than money. What makes the Dodge Colt matter in his collection isn't what it is, it's what it represents. This car was there before the blockbusters, before the red carpets, before the world knew his name. It was his link to stability when life was uncertain, a constant during the grind of auditions and rejections. Cruise reportedly bought it with his earliest savings, likely cobbled together from odd jobs or bit parts. It was reliable, cheap to run, and just enough to get him from one casting call to another. There's something fitting about the Colt being such an unremarkable vehicle. It mirrors how Cruise started out. No special treatment, no shortcuts, just a kid in a small, practical car with big dreams. And in that way, the 1976 Dodge Colt holds a different kind of value in his collection. Not because it's rare, but because it quietly witnessed the part of his life most people never saw. Next is the 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS in Tom Cruise's collection, which isn't just another American muscle car. It's tied to a very specific period in his life, both personally and professionally. He picked it up sometime in the late 80s or 90s, after his star had risen, when he had both the means and the taste to start collecting the kinds of cars he grew up admiring. The Chevelle SS, especially the SS 396 with its 350 horsepower, is a classic. Brash, aggressive, and unapologetically American. That's a big part of why it fits Cruise so well. But what makes this particular Chevelle more than just a collector's piece is what happened years after he bought it. In Jack Reacher, 2012, Cruise didn't just drive a Chevelle on screen, he used one of his own. Out of the 9 Chevelles sourced for the film's intense chase scenes, only 3 made it through. Cruise kept one of them. That detail, him holding onto the car after all the dust, rubber, and metal carnage, tells you something deeper about his connection to it. This wasn't just a prop, it was a personal car that became part of a character, part of a story, and through that, it became a reminder, not just of his love for muscle cars, but of a film where he took creative control and did a lot of the stunt driving himself. So the Chevelle SS isn't just a trophy from success. It's a vehicle that bridges his off-screen passions and on-screen performances, tied together in a way that's far more personal than most people would assume. Tom Cruise's Bugatti Veyron is probably the most technically impressive car in his collection, a hypercar that was, at the time, the fastest production vehicle on the planet. When he bought it in 2005, fresh off a string of global box office hits, it wasn't just about speed or exclusivity. It was a statement. The Veyron, with its 8.0-liter quad-turbo W16 engine and 1,001 horsepower, wasn't meant to be driven casually through Beverly Hills. It was the kind of machine that said, unmistakably, "I've made it." But the story that sticks with this car doesn't come from a racetrack or a performance stat. It comes from a red carpet. At the Mission Impossible 3 premiere, Cruise arrived in the Veyron only to run into a problem. The passenger door wouldn't open. What should have been a slick, choreographed entrance turned into an awkward fumble in front of the cameras. It's a small moment, but one that stuck. Some reports, especially from The Sun, even claimed Bugatti quietly blacklisted him afterward, though the brand never confirmed it. So, while the Veyron should have been the ultimate flex, it ended up becoming a bit of an inside joke. Proof that even the most advanced machines can go wrong at the worst moment. For Cruise, a man known for precision, control, and hands-on stunt work, the irony probably wasn't lost on him. The car remains in his collection, but its story is layered, a symbol of peak success, paired with a public reminder that not even a $1.9 million car is immune to a little unpredictability. The Brabus SLK65 in Tom Cruise's collection is one of those cars that quietly says a lot without ever needing to be shown off. Unlike the flash of the Bugatti or the cinematic presence of the Chevelle, This Brabus is subtle, rare, and deeply personal. Only 5 of these cars were ever made, and Cruise's model, built for right-hand drive, is now believed to be the only one left after an accident took out another. That alone gives it weight. But what really makes this car stand out is its timing. Cruise is thought to have bought it sometime in the late 1990s or early 2000s, during his marriage to Nicole Kidman. It was a period in his life defined by both professional highs and personal complexity. Big films, global fame, and a high-profile relationship constantly under a microscope. The SLK65 wasn't just rare, it was quiet, refined, and incredibly exclusive. Much like the way he seemed to navigate his personal world at the time, this car, with its 450 horsepower and 178 miles per hour top speed, isn't a headline grabber unless you know what you're looking at. And maybe that's the point. It doesn't carry the same cinematic history as some of his other cars, but it's a time capsule, something that likely reminds him of a chapter of his life that was as challenging as it was defining. The fact that it's survived when the others haven't feels symbolic too. In a collection full of loud statements, the Brabus SLK65 is one of the few that speaks softly and still carries meaning. The 2000 Ford Excursion in Tom Cruise's collection doesn't fit the mold of a typical celebrity car. It wasn't built for speed, status, or show. This one had a very different purpose: protection. At a time when Cruise's personal life was intensely public, especially during his marriage to Katie Holmes, the Excursion functioned more like a rolling shield than a vehicle. It was reportedly custom-built, heavily modified with ballistic panels and a stretched tank-like design. In other words, it was designed to disappear into the background while offering maximum security. What makes this car stand out in his collection isn't what it looked like, it's what it says about where Cruise was emotionally and logistically at the time. Privacy had become increasingly difficult to manage, and he had a young family to think about. The Excursion was his answer to that dilemma. Unlike some of his other cars that represent success or performance, this one was all about safety. Its significance isn't in horsepower or rarity, but in function. It was there to make sure the people closest to him stayed protected in a world that was getting harder to keep at a distance. There's also something telling in the fact that this car rarely comes up in conversations about his collection. It's not flashy, it's not a collector's piece, but it served a very real purpose during one of the most scrutinized periods of his life, which gives it a kind of gravity that no supercar really can match. The Nissan 300Z SCCA race car Tom Cruise owned in the late 1980s is a sharp contrast to the polished image most people associate with him. This wasn't a car for cruising or for red carpets. It was a purpose-built machine, bought for one reason: racing. Cruise acquired it around 1988, during a period when his fame was exploding, but his off-screen interests were becoming just as intense. He wasn't playing a racer on screen, he was becoming one in real life, and this car was the entry point. What's most compelling about this 300ZX isn't just that it was fast, or that it was painted in patriotic red, white, and blue with the number 7. It's the context behind it. Cruise was mentored by Paul Newman, who wasn't just a fellow actor, but a serious, respected racer in his own right. That relationship gave Cruise more than credibility in the racing world. It gave him direction. Under Newman's wing, he wasn't dabbling. He was competing in SCCA events, winning races, and earning a name for himself in an entirely different arena. This car represents Cruise's drive, literally and figuratively. The same intensity he brought to acting, he brought to motorsport. The 300ZX wasn't about image, it was about competition, risk, and skill. And unlike the Bugatti or the Chevelle, which are more about collecting or storytelling, this car tells you something direct. He didn't just admire fast cars, he wanted to master them. And there you have it, a fascinating look into Tom Cruise's incredible car collection. From the humble beginnings with his 1976 Dodge Colt, a symbol of his early ambition, to the high-octane performance of his Bugatti Veyron, door drama and all, each vehicle truly is a snapshot of his life. We've seen how his 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS blurred the lines between his acting and his personal passion, and how the ultra-rare Brabus SLK65 quietly marked a significant personal chapter. Even the fortress-like 2000 Ford Excursion tells a story of protection and privacy, while his Nissan 300Z SCCA race car showcases his fierce competitive spirit, honed under the wing of Paul Newman. It's clear that for Tom Cruise, cars aren't just possessions. They're integral parts of his autobiography, each with a unique role in the story of an enduring superstar. Which ride from Tom Cruise's collection do you think tells the most interesting story, and why? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're as fascinated by celebrity cars and the stories behind them as we are, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button for more exclusive content.